There are tons of business podcasts to choose from, but only one has the stamp of approval. Kristin Stampini is South Florida's leading real estate entrepreneur and your trusted source for everything real estate.
Welcome, my listeners, and thank you for joining us today for another episode of my podcast, The Stamp of Approval. I'm Kristin Stampini, co-founder of the Stampini Platinum Real Estate Group with RE/MAX in Boca Raton, Florida. I'm also a certified real estate coach with the Craig Proctor Systems and the owner of Global Virtual Real Estate Assistants. You may have heard us on the radio. I'm also a real estate investor, a national trainer and public speaker, and a certified inside sales agent trainer. So the Stamp of Approval podcast was launched just a couple months ago to share and educate other realtors, consumers, and other business owners across North America by sharing the value and content to my listeners in each and every episode. So my guest here today is Bob Zachmeier, who is a friend of mine. I've known for many, many years. He's innovative real estate investor and broker from Tucson, Arizona, specializing in out-of-the-box solutions that enable buyers and sellers and investors to create profitable seller finance deals. Bob is an active real estate broker and note investor in Tucson, Arizona, who has closed more than 4,000 real estate transactions. I remember, during the, change in the market and the crash in the REOs and real estate owned properties and short sales and things like that. I mean, Bob was doing like 400 or 500 transactions a year just in those transactions alone. He's also written 6 books and raised more than, and this is really the most, gives me goosebumps. Really impressed with, he has raised more than $500,000 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He does an incredible event every year and gives it all to charity. So $500,000 that he's given to Make-A-Wish Foundation. So today, Bob and I are going to discuss on, Bob's going to tell us really how to structure complex note deals in under a minute. Wow, in under a minute. So, Bob, you've always been an out-of-the-box speaker. First of all, I want to welcome you today, and it's so nice to have you.
All right. Thanks, Kristin. I really appreciate the nice introduction, and thank you for thinking of me to have on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
I've always liked every time, we've known each other, I don't know, probably 8 years or so. And I've always loved every time I get together with you that you're always talking about out of the box thinking, and you're always showing me different, you're very creative, you're very good. And you always have a lot going on of, thinking of new ideas and such. So I've always, and that's the reason really why I wanted to bring you here today, is to share your knowledge with everybody else and all of our listeners on here.
Sure.
So tell us about what you've got going on and how you're structuring complex notes deals in under a minute. What does that mean?
Sure. So after, as you had mentioned, I was the largest REO broker in Arizona. I was selling over 640 houses a year.
Wow.
And in 2012, the market changed. And I went from 300 active listings to 30 active listings in less than 6 months. And, even though in 2012 we had significant downturn in our REO business, we still sold over 400 homes. And this is the thing, we lost $32,000 for the privilege of selling 400 homes.
So are you saying your business lost $32,000?
Yes. Because the prices actually had fallen here by over 50%. By that time, the banks had reduced the commission they were paying. They were requiring us to repair, kitchens that had been stripped and pay a whole bunch of money out of pocket, and then proceeded to cheat us out of the reimbursements. And, so the bottom line is it was a huge message that was sent to me. Okay, this model isn't working anymore. It was a necessary evil during the downturn to work for all of the banks, and that was the only people that could afford to sell when everyone's lost 50% of their market value. So we made the choice, okay, we got to fire all the banks, and we did that at the end of 2012. And the market was just starting to recover. The prices were starting to come back, and people were getting back on their feet and succeeding. But we found that a good percentage of our clients could no longer qualify for a loan at the bank. And as a matter of fact, in October of 2018, of all the loans in the United States that were applied for, 29% of the people were turned away still.
Wow.
So that's almost 1 out of 3 people in this country that cannot qualify. And what's interesting is I would say over half the real estate agents in this country cannot buy a home because of the banks. And it's not that they're bad people or they necessarily have bad credit. It's that they make their money in spurts. They don't make it in W-2 every 2-week paychecks. And that is what the banks are looking for because they're selling all their loans. So we actually go out and actively seek the people that have been turned down by the banks. And as long as they have a good down payment, we can typically find someone to put them in a loan with. And just to be clear, I am a real estate broker. I am not a licensed lender. I am not a securities dealer. I'm not it's the only license I have. So when we do these deals, I just want to, for all the real estate agents out there, your job is to put a buyer with a seller and find them a lender. That's what you do on every transaction. So this is no different than that. The only difference is instead of using banks, we use people. And
so
that's
explain to me. And that is, I remember when you first started this and you were showing me this, and I was like, wow, this is really neat how you were figuring it out and how you were going to start this is like right at the beginning when you started talking to me and how you were going to seek the people out and everything else. And I thought, wow, this is a great idea. So tell me the process and what do you go through and how do you find so you said you actually look for people that have been denied by the banks or lenders or mortgage brokers or whatever, right?
Yes, and actually self-employed business people are the ones that I single out, that I actively seek. Most of the people that I lend to, I don't advertise in Spanish, but majority are Hispanic contractors. I put up signs down in the industrial parts of the city by the roofing supply store, the plumbing supply store, the electrical supply store. And these people basically aren't looking for a home on the MLS because they've been told they can't have one. So I educate them with a Bandit sign that basically says, hey, own for cheaper than rent, and then they call the number. So that's where the majority of my buyers come from. And then I just simply ask them where they live now, how much they're paying in rent, and how much money they have down. And if they have, at least 10 to 15% down, actually 15 is the number I'm looking for, then I can find a loan for them, and we qualify that person with a licensed lender to make sure that they qualify and have the ability to repay the money. To make, we do get a copy of their credit report and everything, and then we basically structure the deal. I created some software back in 2013 called Note Carry, and it's notecarry.com. But basically, if you type in just simple things, the address, the market value on the 30-day market value of the home, how much the offer price would be, what the down payment would be, and just how much the insurance, taxes, HOA dues are, and what the buyer would pay in rent, and what income tax bracket they might find themselves in, and then how much do you think the market will appreciate that year. And just plugging in those 10 pieces of information and hitting the enter button will produce a report for that buyer that basically shows them that if they bought this home, they would be, what their total payment is for the first and second loan. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The taxes, the insurance, the homeowners association, the servicing fee for the loan servicing company, and what their total payment is. So the buyers typically save between $100 and $200 a month from what they're currently paying right now in rent.
Wow.
Besides that, they are able to deduct the mortgage interest and the property tax, and then also pay down every month. The principal is being paid off, and any appreciation that occurs in the market belongs to them instead of their landlord. So for most people, they will actually end up saving almost $300 a month. And we target the lower-priced homes in the area. It works best on the low-priced homes because the rent is high compared to the price. When you start going from and by that low price, I would say anything under $150,000 in our market works well.
Okay, so what's your average price in your market?
$215 is the average sale price in the Tucson MLS.
Okay, and when you market or when you go after, you said properties at $150 because of your price point in your market. Are these single family homes?
Yeah, single family homes, typically 3-bedroom, 2-bath. They would rent usually around $1,100 a month, sometimes $1,200, and we can give that buyer in this, somewhere a payment just under $1,000.
So, being the realtor, so you're looking for the buyers, and tell me what what do you do in this process? So you find the buyer.
Okay, and then there's a shortage of inventory all over the United States. So it's gold when you can actually offer to a seller, instead of saying, hey, I'm a real estate agent, I'd like to list your property, you say, what if I could find you a buyer that would pay you $10,000 more? And that's often the case, that people that can't get a loan at the bank are very willing to pay a higher price. Well, most sellers actually hire an agent that promises them the highest price. The only difference is I actually have a way to get a higher price, more than what the market would typically pay, because we're offering value. And it just makes sense. If you aren't going to get your money back for 30 years, will it buy as many groceries when it comes back?
That's right.
I mean, that's very easy to explain to buyers why they would. And then when you show them the benefit report from my software, you are going to get back $105 in income tax that you're not getting back right now. You're going to save $131 in rent. So every month, just those two alone are $236. That's real money next month in your paycheck that's left over. In addition to that, you're paying down principal, which starts in the first month at $78. And then if and this is on a $100,000 home example, the appreciation at 3% a year would be $250 a month. So that's $328 in equity that you're gaining and $236 in cash for a total of $565. How much of your rent are you going to get back?
Wow, that's crazy. And how do you get paid in this whole transaction?
Well, there's two different ways I can be paid. One is if I am the real estate agent, I will get paid the real estate commission. And on most of these deals, because most other people don't understand the seller finance, I find the buyers, I find the sellers. I basically have my own seller finance MLS internally to our business. And so we pretty much get all of the real estate commission if we match buyers with sellers. And I have, agents on my team that represent the buyers, and then I represent all the sellers.
Wow, it's so creative and so awesome, especially being, like Bob said, he is the realtor, he's the broker. He doesn't have any other licenses, he doesn't have anything else. He's just basically putting together a transaction. Okay, he's getting buyers who he said, like he said, 1/3 of them have been turned down by, a variety of banks or lenders or loan originator or whatever. And so he's finding those people, and then he's finding sellers that don't want to put their stuff necessarily on the market or anything else. But you better believe they'd sell it for 10% more than what other homes are selling for. So he's putting them together. And so how many, it seems like a lot of work for this. Is that,
Well, actually, believe it or not, Kristin, it's far less work. I mean, right now, buyer's agents are probably writing 10 offers to get one accepted because of the bidding wars and the shortage of inventory. We basically go out and show a buyer 2 homes and ask them which one they want to write an offer on. And the sellers are predisposed to take that offer because our buyers don't go through a traditional bank. Guess what? They're not asking for 3% in closing costs like most of the buyers are in this lower price point. And so our sellers are saving 3% in buyer closing costs because our closing costs for a buyer are about $500.
Wow.
So the buyers are paying their own closing costs. And these buyers, because they're in the trades, they very rarely ask for any repairs. So compare that to like an FHA buyer that is coming in with very little down. It's taking every dime they have saved, and they've never owned a home before, and they're scared, and they're asking for a laundry list of repairs. Our buyers come in and say, I'll take it the way it is. I don't want anything. I'll pay my own closing costs, and I'll close in 2 weeks. We close most of these deals in 2 weeks.
Wow. So how many people are coming through? So how many different places are you putting all your Bandit signs and such?
I actually don't put up too many. I don't wallpaper the city in them, and I don't need a lot. Believe it or not, Kristin, from our days of selling hundreds of homes, I've actually revamped my business. I take 2 months a year off to go to Europe. My wife and I are taking
Which I've
2 trips.
seen the pictures. They're gorgeous. I mean, you guys,
Yeah.
seriously. And he's not kidding. He really does. He travels all the time.
Yeah, we're going in 2 weeks. We'll be in Portugal for another couple-week vacation. But, it's these real estate notes that have actually gotten me this business. And I will sell, believe it or not, a total of 50 houses this year. I will net more money on those sales than the year that we sold 641 homes.
Wow. And, as a realtor, and I can understand that because I do also look at net profitability, okay? Because, a lot of people out there, making millions and millions of dollars, and then their net profitability, they look at it and go, wow. Okay. So that's, that's good. And the thing is when you lost that 32,000 selling 400 and something homes, you were working 7 days a week, all the time, around the clock, and
Correct.
exhausted, right?
No vacations. Yep. And paid money. I told my wife, we could have shut down our business and gone to Mexico and drank margaritas for a year and not spent $32,000.
Unbelievable. So you put the Bandit signs out. What basically saying? What are your Bandit signs are saying?
It just it has to be, as we learned from Craig Proctor, something that's very short and snappy. There has to be an instant benefit to the buyer, but there has to be an element of curiosity that makes them raise their hand and identify themselves. So it just says seller finance cheaper than rent. It doesn't have a location. It doesn't have an address. It doesn't have a price. If that message appealed to them, they will raise their hand and call the phone number. And that just goes to a Google Voice. And this is the cool thing about these buyers. You can go on a vacation for 3 weeks to Europe and come home, and not a single one of these buyers has bought a home from someone else.
Yeah, that's right. You aren't losing them,
they can't.
ever. That's right.
Yep.
And so you're able to help them, and oh my gosh, they are so thankful because of that. Okay.
Right. And then the sellers also, you go to the seller and you say, let me ask you a few questions. Do you want a fast sale or an easy sale when I sell your home? Do you want the process to be fast or slow? And of course they say fast. Do you want the negotiation to be hard or easy? Well, they say easy. And do you want more money or less money? And of course they all say more. So then I just say, well, what you've described is a seller finance transaction. And I can close faster for more money with the least amount of hassle. That is Craig Proctor's mantra.
Yeah. So how do you find the sellers?
The sellers, I mean, basically when you can legitimately offer them $10,000 more or $15,000 more for their home than anyone else tells them they could net. My sellers typically will net more on a seller finance transaction than they would gross on an MLS sale.
Wow. So how many people are you having to call to actually get somebody who's willing to sell their home like this?
I've never done a cold call in my life, Kristin. I mean, what Craig Proctor taught me was advertising is like a light switch.
That's
when
right.
You want more people, you turn on the switch.
So where are you advertising this?
Well, most of my sellers actually come from referrals. We've sold 4,000 homes. We have just a tremendous amount. And then I have a Sunday radio show that I've had on for 6 years, and that's an hour-long program. And the people on there, you never know how many people you're appealing to until the phone rings. And I get these people that they call and they just say, man, I've been listening to you for years, and I'm finally ready to sell. And so bam, first call. And so I get, quite a bit of traffic off of that. And then the missing piece, most people, when they get a buyer and a seller, they send their buyer over to a lender to be pre-qualified. Well, that is where we're different, because if the seller doesn't want to qualify or carry the loan, which most don't, they have a loan that they have to pay off, and they need the money for their next down payment or to pay off credit card debt. So I just let them tell me all the reasons why they can't carry, and then I just say, what if I found somebody else to carry it for you? And that's where my retirees come in. And these people, including my mother, who's 84 years old, have their money sitting in banks at $100,000 at 0.2% interest would earn a total of $200 a year, which is $16.65 a month. That is not even enough money to buy one Starbucks coffee a week. And if they're married and there's two of them, they have, not even enough for one coffee every other week, right? That's what $100,000 gets for you. Well, that same $100,000 invested in a first position loan at 70 or 75% loan to value would get at a 70% loan to value on $100,000 would get that investor or that retiree not $16 a month like they get at the bank, $665 a month.
Wow. I remember when you were talking about your mom. I mean, way back when you were talking about this, you said 2012. I didn't realize it was that long ago.
Yep.
I remember you even talking about your mom and everything else. So and a lot of people at that age, they're worried about risk factor, right? So what's the risk factor for them?
Okay. Sure. And there is risk in everything. I mean, you can't use the word safe. You can't use the word, anything having to do with any investment. But the bottom line is, compare it to your other investments. They are in a first position loan with a second position loan behind them in the down payment. So let's just use this example. If we could sell the house in 30 days for $100,000, I could, that's the 30-day market value. I could get in this low supply market easily $115 for that home. We're seeing that on the MLS with bidding wars driving the prices higher. So if I got